Did you hire a freelancer or contractor last year and pay them more than $600? If so, there's a tax form you need to file. And if you don't file it by January 31st, the IRS isn't just going to send you a reminder, you're also going to get a tax bill. Every business owner needs to know about the 1099 NEC form. And no, your bookkeeping software doesn't file this form automatically for you. You miss the deadline. The amount you pay the contractor could be disallowed as an eligible business expense. And so in this video, I'm going to break down everything you need to know, like what the 1099 NEC form is and why you should care. Secondly, who does and doesn't need to file this form. Third, the fastest, most affordable way to get this form submitted today. Fourth, the requirements for filing the 1099 NEC form. And so before we get started, I want to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Tax 1099. I was able to partner with them to bring you a special coupon code. So feel free to use the link in the description and the code Darcy15 for 15% off your order. Now let me break down what exactly the 1099 form is. And so the 1099 NEC stands for non-employee compensation. It's the form you use to report payments made to independent contractors, freelancers, or anyone who provided a service to your business but wasn't on your payroll. This form was actually introduced in 2020 after being retired for decades. Before that, non-employee compensation was reported on the 1099 MISC. Now it has its own dedicated form and its own deadline. When you pay someone as a contractor, you don't withhold taxes like you would for a full-time employee. The IRS, though, still needs to know about that income. The 1099 NEC is how they track it. You're essentially telling the IRS, I pay this person this amount of money, and they need to report it on their tax return. And if you don't file this report, the IRS assumes you didn't pay them, which means they might disallow the deduction. Or worse, the IRS might assume you did pay them but didn't report it, and now you're both in trouble. And so if you meet the following three requirements, you are expected to file this form. The first condition is that you paid someone $600 or more during the 2025 tax year for services rendered. Second condition is that that person is not your employee. They're an independent contractor. The third condition is that you paid them in a reportable method, which I'll explain in a second. Now, one more important update. Starting in 2026, the reporting threshold has increased to $2,000, which gives business owners a little more breathing room, but for 2025, the 600 rule still applies. So if you're running a business and hired help for someone who isn't on your W-2 payroll, you're likely responsible for filing this form. Now let me break down who doesn't need to file Form 1099 NEC. And so if your contractor is taxed as an S Corp or C Corporation, in most cases, you don't need to file a 1099 NEC form. And the reason is because corporations already report their income separately. Now, how do you know if they're a corp? That's where the W-9 comes in, which we'll cover a little bit later. Secondly, if you made the payment through a third-party processor like PayPal, Stripe, or Square, you're off the hook and do not need to file Form 1099 NEC. Those platforms are required to issue their own 1099-K to the contractor if they meet certain thresholds. But if you pay them through Zelle, Venmo, ACH transfer, check, or cash, that's on you. The third exception is if you made the payment for goods. And so if you bought products or inventory from a vendor, that's not reportable on a 1099 NEC. Now let's take a sneak peek into my 1099 dashboard, and I'll show you exactly how to file this form step by step using Tax 1099. So to get started, we're going to go to tax1099.com. Once we land on the page, we're going to go to the upper right-hand corner and click Sign Up. What we want to do is click Forms and then create a new form. Once we select the tax year, we're going to scroll down and select the 1099 NEC form. It's then going to take us to this page where we have the option to single file or import bulk data if we have multiple forms we need to submit. For now, we're going to submit a single file application. So what we'll first need to do is add a payer. So we're going to click Add a Payer. And so the payer is someone who makes payments to other recipients. And this will likely be you as an individual or as a business. Because I own a business entity, let's select business. And so I'm going to enter in my business name, my EIN, and my phone number. Then I'll enter in the address and confirm the state. From there, the zip code will be validated, and then once everything looks good, I'm going to hit save. My business information will then auto-populate. Next, it's time to scroll down and enter in the recipient. And so I'm going to click add a recipient. In this case, I paid an individual. And so now I'm going to enter in their name, their TIN, as well as their address. Before I forget, I also want to enter in their email address, as Tax 1099 can send them an electronic copy of their 1099 NEC. And so once everything looks good, I'm going to hit save. And so now we need to enter in the non-employee compensation. And so I paid the individual $1,000 for the work they did. Below that, you'll see the fields for the payer state ID, name, and state income. In the state of Texas, there's no state income tax. And so I'll input Texas and I'll let Tax 1099 handle the rest. And so I'll hit save and continue. And so it's going to give us the date, their TIN, the amount we paid them, as well as a valid email. We also have the option of sending them the 1099 NEC form by USPS mail or by e-delivery. And so you will need to include an email if you want the form to be delivered electronically. You'll also need to include an address if you want the form to be sent by USPS mail. So check the one that works best for you. And then lastly, there is a TIN match. Basically, the way it works is that Tax 1099 sends the TIN number that you've entered in to the IRS database to validate that the IRS records and your records match. And so it's an extra safety check just to make sure you're good to go. And I personally would recommend that you do this step. Once everything looks good, you're going to check the far left box, and then you're going to scroll down and click Submit for this payer. It'll then take you to the billing page where it'll list out each of the costs. And so the total cost of filing the 1099 NEC as well as sending it to the recipient is about $7.14. And this includes both the USPS mailing fee as well as the e-delivery fee. You can choose whichever one works best for you. Now that everything looks good, I'm going to enter in my address, my email, as well as the coupon code Darcy15. And then lastly, I'm going to enter in my payment information. Now that you know how to file this form, let's talk about the requirements. Basically, the information you need to have ready to go. And so you'll need to provide some basic personal or business details. If you're filing as an individual and not as a business, that means you'll need your full name, social security card number, phone number, and address. If you're operating as a business, you'll use your business name, EIN, business address, and phone number instead. You'll also need your recipient's information, and it works the same way, whether they're an individual or a business. You'll need their name, address, and tax ID, which you'll likely get from the W-9 form you had them fill out. If you didn't have them fill it out already, I'll share in a moment how you can get that information. Now let's quickly talk about what happens if you don't file this form. And you should know that the IRS doesn't mess around when it comes to information returns, and the 1099 NEC falls into this category. And so when it comes to the penalties for not filing this form, they're not cheap. Instead of walking you through every single fee, I'm going to leave a chart on the screen so that you can take a screenshot. It breaks down the penalties based on when you file. The IRS uses automated systems to assess penalties for missing or late 1099s. And if you're flagged, you'll get a notice and a bill in the mail. So let's say you paid someone $10,000 and didn't file a 1099 NEC form. The IRS might say, hey, we have no record of this payment, so we're now allowing you to take this deduction. Now you owe taxes on an additional $10,000, which could be $2,000 to $4,000 of additional money you owe depending on your tax bracket. Not only are you paying the penalty for not filing, you're also paying extra taxes because the deduction got thrown out. And if the contractor didn't report the income on their return, now the IRS is looking at the both of you. And I say that not to worry you or scare you, but to inform you so that you have the information you need to make the right decisions for you and your business. And so filing takes a few minutes and costs a few bucks, but not filing could cost you thousands. Now let me walk you through how to collect the W-9 form the right way. And so before you file any forms, you should collect W-9 forms from every contractor you plan to report. And here's how you do it professionally. You're first going to request it early. Ideally, you would request a W-9 before the first payment. Some businesses make it part of their onboarding process. Secondly, you're going to use a template or a digital tool. The IRS has a standard W-9 form you can download. You can also use platforms like Tax 1099, which let you request W-9s electronically. Third, you can verify the information. Make sure the name and tax ID matches what the IRS has on file. If someone does business under a trade name but files taxes under their legal name, you need their legal name. Fourth, store it securely. You don't submit the W-9 form to the IRS. You keep it for your records. And so a pro tip, if your contractor refuses to provide a W-9, you're required to begin backup withholding, meaning you withhold 24% of their payments and send it directly to the IRS. And so most contractors will send the W-9 once they hear that. And so that's where Tax 1099 comes in. They offer one of the most affordable and user-friendly platforms for e-filing. Now let me walk you through the pricing real quick. If you have 1 or 2 contractors that you need to file the form for, it'll probably cost you $5 to $10 per form. But if you've got 5, 10, or 20 contractors, Tax 1099 uses tiered pricing, which means the more forms you file, the less you pay per form. For example, 1 form might be $4.99, 5 forms might drop to $3.99, and if you have 10 plus forms, it could drop to $2.99 per form. That's huge, especially if you're a growing business with multiple freelancers. And so now that you've seen exactly how to file it step by step, let's recap some of the big takeaways. The 1099 NEC is required when you pay a non-employee contractor $600 or more for services. Secondly, you don't typically have to file this form if you hired a C Corp or S Corp, or you paid them through PayPal, Stripe, Square, or another credit card processor. And third, missing the deadline can trigger automatic IRS penalties, and you risk losing the deduction. Feel free to use the link in the description and code Darcy15 for 15% off your order. And if you want more videos like this, make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I cannot wait to see you next time.